So what changes, if any, should the head coaches be making to their teams for round 2 of the Six Nations coming up this weekend? I will wrap up the what we know about the injuries and players coming back from injury or suspension, have a bit of a reflection on how the team's played and what changes need to be made to make sure they put in the performance they want this coming weekend. Leave your thoughts down below as ever in the comments. I'm going to take the games in chronological order. So that means we start in Scotland, where Scotland play France. Isn't it interesting that in the first 2 round of fixtures in this year's competition, the most consequential games, the biggest matches of the weekend arguably, are the first games. Happened France v Ireland, now France travelling to Scotland. This is the team that took to the field at the Principality Stadium, got the win, but a terrible second half from Scotland will leave Gregor Townsend with a few thoughts in his mind. In terms of players we know that are unavailable, they've got 2 in the pack. Richie Gray and Luke Crosby are both been ruled out for the remainder of the Six Nations due to injury. Real shame for them. They do have good players that can come in though, not least in the second row where Grant Gilchrist, who was serving a suspension and that's why he wasn't involved last weekend, he will be available and I expect him to start in place of Richie Gray. I also expect Jack Dempsey to be elevated from the bench into the starting line, and maybe that will mean Matt Fagerson shunts across to the flank. I'm not sure the exact status of Rory Darge. I was slightly surprised not to see him involved against Wales. Assuming he's fit and well and available this weekend, then I think there is an argument that he starts ahead of Jamie Ritchie based on the performance we saw at the weekend, but I'd hope that he would be involved in the match day 23. Honestly, other than that, I don't see any other changes for Scotland, and I personally wouldn't make any other changes for Scotland. I think you can make the argument. I was slightly surprised. I assumed when I heard Blair Kinghorn was out, and he is out again this weekend, I assumed that Hugh Jones might jump to fullback where he's played before, and Cam Redpath would go into the centre partnership with Tuipulotu. But Kyle Rowe, to his credit, did very well, I thought, in Cardiff, so I would continue with him there. Continue with Huey Pilotu as that centre pairing. Very balanced and good relationship between the pair of them. And then you've got a great player like Redpath to come off the bench. So that's as I see it. If you think differently, let me know in the comments down below. They come up against France, who got that absolute beatdown by Ireland on Friday night in Marseille. They'll be not just wanting to, they need to bounce back. They need to go 4 from 4 in the rest of this competition, or it will be just piling, by their standards, of failure on top of World Cup disappointment. This is the team that took to the field. Obviously, there will be no Paul Willemse, suspension incoming, so he will be out. Emmanuel Meafu, he dropped out of the squad, and then you also had Roman Taufifenua. He's still going to be unavailable, but if Meafu is back, as I expect he will be, the question mark is then what do you do with the second row? Now, the argument is you could just bring in Emmanuel Meafu to partner Paul Gabrilag. If Meafu's not available, Cameron Woki could come in off the bench. What I would do, actually, is I would go Cameron Woki and Emmanuel Meafu. The classic athletic lock and the big man as well. And the reason I would do it like that is I don't think you can have Meafu and Tuilagi on the bench because that's 2 big men. It just wouldn't work. You need to have one on the bench, one starting. And I just think Woki, I mean, personally, I would have started him last weekend anyway. So he's an experienced player, still very young, class operator. And France's line-out got cleaned out by Ireland. And I think Woki will be the man to sort that out against Scotland. So those are the changes I would make in the pack. Tell me if you disagree. In terms of the back line, the temptation would be there to make wholesale changes. Maxime Luku, for example, got a lot of criticism at scrum half. He didn't have his greatest day, but then he was playing behind a pack that were getting battered. The ruck was just getting obliterated by Doris and Van der Fleer and Omani and Tyg Byrne and Dan Sheehan. They were just attacking it, and as a result, the ball was really poor. I would continue. They play together at Bordeaux, De Luca and Jalabert, and I think it's the best hope for France to get straight back on the horse. Remember how well they were playing last year, and this is largely the back line. The one change I would make, revert back to Louis Biel-Biarré with Mo Afana dropping onto the bench. And personally, that's where I would leave it. I think Fabien Galtier did say there will not be wholesale changes after the disappointment. I don't think they need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The one argument you could make is that Jonathan Donty had such a poor game against Ireland, and the way he got ghosted around by Tyg Byrne was concerning. There is an argument, perhaps, that Gaël Fickou moves into 12 and Emilien Gueton. Or, I'll tell you what, Nicolas Deporter. He's been playing brilliantly for Bordeaux. Arguably, you could bring him in at 13 as well. There's definitely an argument for that, and if Fabien Galtier does that, I'll be all for it. I don't think they will, however. I think he will stick with the tried and tested, and I think Jonathan Danty has probably earned the right to put the performance in Marseille right in Murrayfield. They're going to need a big performance to do so. So that's how I see it with France. Moving on to Ireland, they will be hosting Italy. And I guess the question is, well, firstly, no injury concerns that I'm aware of, at least. Gary Ringrose looks like he's not going to be available this weekend. So that's someone that isn't going to be available to come back in. What changes do you make? Because if Andy Farrell was going to have some rotation in his squad, and he's shown that he's willing to and got the confidence in his squad to do so, this would be the game you would feel. At home against Italy, Ireland will be heavy, heavy favourites. Even away in Italy last year, they made a few changes. I remember Craig Casey came in, had a really good game in that match. I think this is the one where he should and where he will. What I will say is, I wouldn't change the front five too much. I think those solid foundations will enable everyone else to do their job and look really good. So personally, I'd keep all of the front five the same, with the exception of Tadhg Beirne, who I would just say, do you know what, Tadhg, you had an unreal game. Just relax for a bit. Just have a weekend off. Go and sit in a hot tub and an ice bath. He was monumental. James Ryan is not a handy guy to have coming into a team in a stadium that he's played in many times at international level and for his province as well. I think this is maybe the time where you give Ryan Baird and Jack Conan a run. Again, the quality of the players that Ireland can bring in is exceptional. It really is. So I'm not saying this is what Andy Farrell will do. And if he decides to rotate a few, he could rotate a couple here, a couple there. Ronan Kelleher could get some game time starting, of course. But then one of the reasons I've said don't change too much of the front five is because they tend to play close to half a game, whether you start on the bench or you start the match. So I think more consequentials in the back row, where I would jig things around, shunt the skipper across to open side flanker, let O'Mahony and Tadhg Beirne have a well-earned break, and Jack Conan can start a number 8 as well. Not a handy pack, that. I'd take it. In the back line, I would make one change. My justification for only making one change is the fact that when you think about the World Cup squad, there's 3 guys that are different from that 7-man back line anyway. You've got Jack Crowley now starting, you've got Robbie Henshaw in for Gary Ringrose, Calvin Nash in for Matt Hansen. So there's 3 guys that are gelling as part of a new back line anyway. And with that in mind, I would just change Craig Casey. What I would also do on the bench, I'd involve Ian Henderson. I still think he's a class operator, and he can cover second row and blindside. Doris can cover all across the back row as well, and that enables you to have a 5-3 split on the bench and involve someone like Stuart McCloskey, maybe Jacob Stockdale. So that's my thoughts on Ireland. Tell me if you disagree, or tell me what you think, because I do think Andy Farrell will and should make a few changes, not wholesale. Strategically, he should and will bring some in, and this just shows you where Ireland are at, that the guys they bring in are high quality individuals. As for Italy, I'm not even going to bother bringing up Italy's team, because Italy, you played well, you got a new coach, new halfback combo, well, not new, but you know what I mean, the brothers just bedding in at international level, and I thought they played really well against England, and just pick the same team and do your very best in Dublin. So I'm not aware of any injuries for Italy, but assuming there are none, then go for it. There is Ange Capuozzo, obviously, if he is fit, then you may start him instead of Pani, but either or. So that's Italy. Moving on to the final fixture, I will be at... what did I say? What was I doing with that last Ireland one? What have I done there? Oh, I didn't mean to put that one in. Anyway, forget that. Pretend that one didn't exist. I will be at Twickenham for England against Wales. The early evening kickoff on Saturday at Twickenham. The England team got a win over in Italy. playing against Wales at home. Steve Borthwick rarely changes much anyway. I don't expect him to change a great deal, and I don't think he should. Starting with the forwards, I think everybody's got a clean bill of health. The one person that is going to be available again is Ellis Genge, who was a late change to the 23-man squad, pulling out late in the warm-up with Beno Obano coming in. I would put Genge back in on the bench, and I would keep it the same. I think there's an argument to say Dan Cole, is it worth having Dan Cole? If he's on the bench, he's not a very dynamic, impactful player. I actually think what's happening here, if you remember the World Cup semi-final, Cole and Marler did such a good job scrummaging, and then the guys came off the bench and got obliterated. I actually think that what's happening here is Steve Borthwick does not want to pick Joe Marler and Dan Cole at the same time. He wants to have one of them on the field, because then you're sort of mitigating any potential issues there might be. You're going to have one good scrummaging tight head prop on the field at any one time, at least one. And sometimes there'll be a period where Marler and Cole might be on together, because Marler did play 75 minutes in Rome as well, which kind of says Steve Borthwick doesn't totally trust Beno Obano yet. We'll see. So that's how I would keep it in the pack. I would keep it exactly the same. There is an argument that Sam Underhill didn't have a great game. He didn't. But he's Sam Underhill and he is class, so I would definitely give him another go, especially against Wales at Twickenham. I think he'll step up. Ethan Roots gets to continue. George Martin is back training with the team, but he's not fit to play yet, so watch this space for him. Maybe next round of games. And so in that case, Cunningham South continues on the bench. In terms of the back line, again, I don't think Steve Borthwick's going to make any changes. I think he will keep it the same. I would probably just make one change. And that might be Emmanuel Faye-Waboso starting on the left wing and Elliot Daly switching with him. And that is not because of any other reason. It's not because Elliot Daly had a bad game. I like Elliot Daly. He's been getting a bit of stick from people. I don't understand it. He's been a fine player for England. He still is a good player. I would pick Emmanuel Faye-Waboso because he's Welsh and he's playing against Wales. And it just makes for a great subplot to the match. So, simple as that. That's why I want him in. It just makes the game a little bit more fun, and he's a very exciting winger, so let's see what he can do at Twickenham in front of a home crowd. I hope he gets more than a couple of minutes rugby if he is starting on the bench again. Fraser Dingwall did not play brilliantly, did he, in the centre for England, but I would continue with him. Ollie Lawrence is not back training with the squad yet. He's not going to be fit, which is a real shame. Do you shunt it around and put Henry Slade to 12 and Tommy Freeman? I'm not interested in that. We finally have picked a 12 who plays 12 for his club in a 12 shirt for England. Let's just stick with it. Trust. Fraser Dingwall is a good rugby player. He looked maybe a little bit lightweight on the international level up against Menoncello and Brex. He's going to have a tough matchup against Tompkins and possibly George North. I'll come on to that in a minute, but I would keep it the same. I think there's a lot of people that would change George Ford, would change Elliot Daly. I think they're both class, but there we go. That's just my thoughts. Get yours in down below. And moving over to Wales, there's the team that started at the weekend. In terms of the personnel, James Botham is out for the Six Nations. Real shame for him. Waiting to see about Sam Costello, but I would basically rule out Leon Brown and Ryan Elias from that starting team based on that first half performance for Wales, and Gareth Davis as well. So changes I would make straight off the bat with this Welsh team would be, as you can see in the pack, Elliot Dee and Asarati promoted from the bench into the starting lineup. Alex Mann promoted from the bench into the starting lineup in the back row. And I would probably bring back Will Rowlands, maybe on the bench, I would say, to start, with Adam Beard off the bench. That's just suddenly elevates the feel of Wales's pack a little bit, just having those two big units in the second row available. Teddy Williams will be a good player, not quite international standard yet. And as for the back line, again, Sam Costello's fitness or otherwise, that remains to be seen. Hopefully for him he's fit. But Ioan Lloyd played so well in the second half, you'd have confidence in him starting at 10. Thomas Williams has to and will surely start at 9. He just changed the game with Gareth Davis going back onto the bench. And then what do you do? George North into the centre for Owen Watkin, who was not great. And George North is a seasoned campaigner, so he's in. What do you do with the back three for Wales? Tell me in the comments down below what you do. Because your options are to keep it the same. Your option is also to have Mason Grady come in on the wing and go for experience and put Josh Adams to fullback with Cam Winnett on the bench. or you show confidence in this youngster who did all right in Cardiff, in Cameron Winnett, and you maybe have Rio Dyer coming off the bench. I think of the three options, I'd be tempted by that one. Just bigger, robust units. But then again, Rio Dyer, when the game did kind of bust open, he looked great. And you do wonder if Wales throw caution to the wind a little bit in Twickenham, are England susceptible to being caught a bit on the outside? Italy certainly demonstrated that they are. So I haven't totally made up my mind on how I would have the back three. I think you would have those four people involved in one combination or another, and they'll all contribute, whether it's from the bench or from the starting team. But hey, tell me what you think. I'm getting excited already. Cannot wait. As I say, I will be there at Twickenham, hoping to get out amongst the fans as well after the game. And so if you're going to Twickenham, keep an eye out outside the stadium. I'll have my phone and a little stand and a light on top of it. And yeah, come and say hello and get stuck in. I can't wait. I love this time of year so much. And I really, really appreciate the support on the channel. If I haven't already, I would love it if I've earned your subscription with this video. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps spread the word. If you want to help other rugby fans find me and help grow the channel, I would love that as well. And most importantly, leave your comments down below.